Welcome on, King. Thanks for joining us today. Recording this, and we'll make it available to folks for playback as well. And so we'll just jump right in. So the title of today is called "The Magic of Cost Segregation." King, so that you're aware, and really for our audience, typically we've had these monthly webinars taking place on the second Saturday of each month, just as we have today. We used to call it MAGS, which is Monthly Accountability Group Session. We renamed it to Redeem Saturday School. And so we are still doing something called MAGS, but that's really for our members only sessions that we have with our Redeem Team Mastermind, which I'll talk about in a second. So for the purposes of today, Redeem Saturday School, the topic is the magic of cost segregation. So Mr. King White is joining us from his organization, O'Connor and Associates, and he'll tell you more about that here in a moment. I did want to just share a little bit of information about our company and sort of what we do, and a little bit about the mastermind for those who might be listening for the first time. And so let me do that now. Firstly, the name of my company is called Redeem Investments. Our tagline is renovating properties, transforming lives. And really that's what we strive to do in our company. Before I get into more details about that, here's just a quick little disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a licensed investment advisor. I'm not an accountant. And the information that we provide on these sessions, including this one, is intended for educational purposes only. So the makeup of our team, of our company, really is depicted in this slide here, where we have something called the Redeem Team Mastermind, which really is a way for us to be able to engage with folks interested in learning to do what it is that we're doing, but most importantly, to partner with us via joint ventureships and co-GP arrangements, so that they get to start building their resume and learning how to do syndications, learning how to do private investment funds, and some of the other things that we're doing. You see there on the bottom, Redeem Realty Solutions. That's really the segment of our business that's focused on residential properties. There's not a whole lot that we do there. On occasion, we may do something in the residential space, like wholesaling or something of that nature. Really, our bread and butter at this point is Redeem Commercial Real Estate, and then Redeem Renewable Energy. And within Redeem Commercial Real Estate, that's our apartment acquisition for value add properties, and then renewable energy. We actually have a fund right now where we're raising capital for, where we're serving as a private lender, if you will, to a developer partner of ours who is building large utility scale renewable energy projects. And again, we're providing them with pre-development and development loans to initiate those projects. So all within the context of an investment fund. What's a mastermind? So the way that we structure our mastermind, again, it's a joint venture partnership program, really created for those who are aspiring to be a general partner or a sponsor for syndications or private investment funds. It provides access and resources, training, meetings and events and other things. It is limited to 50 members. We have probably, we've got room to accept more members at this point for those who might be interested. These are the type of people who are involved in our mastermind. Some fellow West Point graduates. There's one Naval Academy graduate. These folks are also, apartment syndicators already in the residential family housing space, short-term rentals, active duty. Retired military, one's a commercial real estate broker, and so there's various folks within our midst that do various things and all really add value to the mastermind and serve as co-GPs for us in our deals. I often get the question of how can I participate, and so simply going to our website is one way. Sending us an email at invest@redeeminvestments.com. Our website is www.redeeminvestments.com. There's a page on our website for the mastermind specifically, and again, this describes what it is. It really is ideal for those who are wanting to learn how to do what we're doing It's not necessarily for the person who simply wants to be a limited partner in investment deals. We certainly have room for those folks, but it is ideal for someone who intends to be a limited partner already, but also wants to learn how to be a general partner. It again provides all these different resources that I named, and then it's limited to 50 members. The thing that I'll say as well, and I often forget to say this, is that we provide basically a money-back guarantee, and the membership fee that folks pay into the program is automatically rolled into a limited partnership position when we have a deal available, so that money doesn't go to waste. It's not sort of disappearing into thin air. It really is going towards a position where they would have an investment stake in a deal that we actually take down together. So that's one of the benefits of the mastermind. Just a quick recap of some of the events that we've already done this year and some upcoming events. In January, we had an economist come on. February, we had our acquisitions team. In March, we had our tax strategist talking about how to score with your defense. We had a meetup event that was a virtual event in March as well. In April, we had a discussion about concierge services and adding value to apartment buildings that we have. In May, we had a Quest Trust company come on to talk about investing with self-directed retirement accounts. In June, we had our a meetup where we went on a fishing trip and down in Galveston. And then we had a mastermind member retreat in Cancun in July. And now today with Mr. King White here to talk about cost segregation is what we're doing. In September, we have someone coming on to talk about asset protection and insurance, which obviously is very important in terms of what we're doing. In October, we'll have someone come on talking about the commercial new build process for those who may be interested in ground up development for multifamily. And then in November, we have our Q4 meetup taking place to coincide with the Army Air Force game in Dallas. And then lastly, in December, we'll have someone come on talking about goal setting and really motivation as we're ending the year and then starting off the new year. So the thing that I'll share as we prepare to transition to Mr. White here is, when you consider the wealth formula, it starts with a base of making money, followed by how to keep that money, and then ultimately multiplying that money via investments. Really, where the discussion fits in today is that middle segment of keeping money, largely because the topic has a lot to do with how cost segregation impacts and relates to tax advantages with especially with real estate, and how we can retain more of the money that we keep by way of fully utilizing the tax code, especially as it relates to depreciation and things of that nature. And so that's part of what the discussion is about today. And then lastly, I'll say that, commercial multifamily is where it's at for us for a lot of different reasons, but this is just some pictures of our property in Arlington and some of the renovations that we've done there. Its proximity to the Cowboy Stadium right across the street. And then, of the different things that we really enjoy and like about commercial real estate investing, especially, chief among them, or not chief among them, but one of the main ones is what I've bolded here, which is tax advantages. And so that's really the perfect segue to King talking about cost segregation and why we brought him on today. So with that, let me now hand it off to Mr. King White. So King, over to you, sir. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and then I'll pull up your presentation here.
Thank you very much, Christian. Yes, my name is King White, and I can really relate to a lot of the stuff that you just talked about. In my former life, I was a certified financial planner and registered investment advisor. Have been a general partner, and in 2004, I joined O'Connor and Associates, and with two other people, we put together the cost segregation group. Since that time, we've done over 6,000 studies. and I don't know how many millions of dollars in taxes we've saved our investors. O'Connor, before I go any further, I just want to mention a little bit more about our company, and that is that O'Connor and Associates is let's see what I wanted to say, has multiple lines of business. The largest and most well-known being their property tax. They are by far the largest property tax consultant in Texas. I believe they do somewhere between 5 and 10,000 property tax appeals. Well, not that many appeals, but they have that many clients, and it's more than that as far as the number of appeals for commercial properties, and something over 100,000 property tax appeals for residential clients. Our other divisions, one is that we have a division of about 400 people that do public records research. And so they target all of the metropolitan areas in the United States, the main county plus all of the surrounding counties, and pull real estate related research out of that. And we finally have a marketing group that markets that data that's collected by the research group. So anyway, I also want to mention the last thing is that, hey, O'Connor is a great company. It's a great company to work for. They've been received awards for the last several years as one of the top 10 companies in Houston to work for. So go ahead and turn me over to slide number 2. And basically, this just says that cost segregation is a process that's been approved. Every one of the big 4 accounting firms, many of the large regional accounting firms have internal cost segregation groups that they do. We do the same thing that they do. Of course, our fees are about half of what they charge, but they've got clients that can afford to pay the big dollars. I would want to also say that if we go ahead and turn to slide number 3, that if you, yeah, there we go. We have here some quotes by the IRS, and basically just saying that neither the use of cost segregation or filing a Form 3115 in itself is a flag triggering an examination. And accordingly, automatic consent for a change of accounting method through the filing of the Form 3115 provides a timely, provided that it's done in a timely manner, and the deduction for the catch-up depreciation through a 481 adjustment. Basically, what that means is if you bought a property 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you've been using cost segregation all these years, you've been using the regular straight line depreciation all these years, you've been under, you have shown less depreciation each year than you could have if you had been using cost segregation. So if you were to go ahead and decide to do cost segregation on that property at the present year, you would catch up all that back depreciation that you were eligible to take in former years, but you didn't take. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what we do is we provide a free, no obligation preliminary analysis and proposal. We basically give you upfront a fee, and there are no percentages or add-ons or anything like that. So you know upfront what it costs, and with the analysis, you should have a pretty good idea of what the tax savings will be. Next slide. So the process is basically just to have a conversation with you, answer all of your questions, discuss the preliminary analysis that we've provided you. If you're satisfied with that and it works for you, then we generate a letter of engagement, which you send back to us. And as soon as we receive it, then the process is then assigned to an appraiser who will contact you, set up a site visit to come out and inspect the property. Once there, we identify all of the items that are eligible for short life depreciation. Those components of the building that are separate from the structural portion of the building that can be depreciated in categories of 5, 7, or 15-year property. So we would then generate a report that would show the land value, if there's any 27.5 or 31.5 or 39-year property, those values, as well as all of the component values for 5, 7, and 15-year property, and break out the 9 structural components when applicable. Next slide. Here are some typical 5, 7, and 15-year items. There are actually over 120 items that have been established, but these are kind of the most usual for a 5-year property. These are things that are inside the building. You would be looking at flooring, selected cabinetry, plumbing, special use HVAC. Air conditioning is not considered a cost seg item unless it's for climate control, such as if you had say a printing facility where you had to keep the temperature down, or computers, or you had maybe a warehouse that had climate control in it. In those cases, HVAC is eligible for 5-year property. 7-year property are all small items that are outside, such as signs, outdoor furniture, or maybe any kind of gazebo or something that might be out there on the property. 15-year property includes concrete, asphalt paving. That includes driveways, walkways. It includes loading docks. It includes anything that's concrete. It includes also your underground utilities and infrastructure, which would be the grading, the electrical, all of that stuff, fencing, rails, walkways, landscaping for a apartment project, swimming pools and stuff such as that, maybe tennis courts, whatever. Next slide, please. Okay, this is one you can look at, but basically it's just basically stating the compliance with the repairs and capitalization regulations. Our detailed cost segregation studies provide the requisite information, including the breakout of 9-year structural components where applicable. And we provide proper categorization, not only of all the assets with compliance, but also allows you to take advantage of those valuations if you ever have to replace something. Say you had carpet or wood flooring or something in there. A few years down the road, you replace it. Well, you know how much is left on your depreciation balance for that category, so you can then you can write it off at that point in time. Next slide, please. Okay, what types of properties apply? Well, basically anything with a depreciable basis of 500,000 or more. So if you purchased a property, you take out whatever the unimproved land value is, gives you your depreciable basis. And so if it's $500,000 or more, it works. Sometimes it can work a little bit less than that, but that's a pretty good number to start with. Any of those categories that you see are categories, virtually any kind of a commercial building can be used. And we actually do cost segregation for single family homes where people own portfolios of 10 or 15 homes or something like that as well. And so if you'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, who can benefit? Commercial real estate owners who purchased their property after January the 1st of 1987. So I actually last year did a cost segregation study for a retail mall in the Woodlands area, right there adjacent, pretty close to the Woodlands Mall, the big Woodlands Mall. But anyway, that property had been purchased in 2001. So it had basically been about 19 years into the depreciation schedule. And obviously with they had a 15-year property that was still unused, and 5 and 7, 15-year property that had not been separated out, and it still made a lot of sense. I'll be able to show that to you in a minute on a Excel spreadsheet, how that works. Who can do it? Well, basically anybody, any individual or any entity that is a pass-through entity, such as a limited partnership, LLC, S corporation, TICs, or individuals can take advantage of this. Also, if you're a tenant in a building and you paid for all your improvements, you as the tenant then, the build out, you would be eligible to cost seg that as well. If you're an owner of a building and you gave an allowance to somebody to build out the property, then the owner of the property would be the one that would be eligible to cost seg all of those improvements. Okay.
Hey, I have a quick question for you that you might
Sure.
Here. So, is it better or preferred to obtain the cost segregation study before or after you do a major renovation to a building?
Okay, that's a very good question. First of all, it is usually better to do the cost segregation study as soon as you can. That means in the first year, rather than using straight line depreciation for a year or 2 or 3 first, and then going back and trying to do the catch up. It's better to go ahead and get your deductions up front for most people. However, there's nothing is correct for everybody. Now, if you were to buy a property in January of 2021 and you do a cost and you decide to do some major renovations, let's just say that will go throughout 2021 and maybe even into 2022, you can't do a cost segregation until you've placed the property in service. So as soon as you place it in service, let's say you go ahead and place this property in service because you have some tenants there in January of 2021 or February when you purchase it, but then you've got all this construction going on. What we would do is that if you engaged us, we would have somebody that would do a site visit, but they would wait until toward the end of the year, maybe December or something like that. At that point, we would be able to recognize all of the improvements that were done after the purchase date until December 31st of that year. We would not be able to do anything that would be done in the future unless if it was major, then you could bring us back for another cost seg the following year. But generally, improvements are completed within a year's time. And so you'd want to go ahead and we would we would advise you on that, but we would advise you that it would be best for you to wait until all of your expenses for the current year were known. And then we could do it for that year. So we would have the purchase price less the land value and all of the cost segregation on the existing building as it was at the day you got it, plus all of the construction going forward. One little aside, if a person buys a property and places it in service and plans to use it, but then a year later or 2 years later decides to do some major renovation, then you've got all the basis of what was there at the beginning, and you would be eligible if you had a change of business plan to go back and get deductions for all the demolition that was done before you built out and did the new build out. If, on the other hand, you bought the property and with the idea of building it out right then for the current year, then you don't really get the demolition expenses as an expense. It's just, it falls into the basis of the property.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, maybe that was a little more than you wanted to know, but
That was very helpful. That was very helpful. Thank you.
okay, what slide are we on?
Slide 10.
10? Okay, let's see what's up next. Okay, what about older properties? We've gone over that. You have a Form 3115 that you would sign, that you would file with your tax return, and it would basically inform that the IRS that you're changing from straight line depreciation to cost segregated depreciation. And with that, they would give you, they have an automatic consent on that. And they would allow you the 481A adjustment in that year to catch up all the back depreciation and to start on cost segregation moving forward. Next slide, please. Okay, some actual studies. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, and let's go to about 100% on that, because this is kind of small. I don't think we can see that. Let's go up a little bigger. Yeah, okay. So here are some actual studies that were done, that have been done, and maybe we can scroll through these a little bit, but let's just kind of take a look at the top, at those that we can see. They range from the low 20% up to here's one that's 66%. That is a tenant improvement, but for a person owning a property, since the tenant doesn't own any of the structural portion, the improvements that they make generate a higher percent. But generally speaking, between 20 and about 45% is the number that you would see, and you can see the amount of, for instance, on this top property here, it is a 4-story apartment building. Doesn't have much anything outside. Yes, so it doesn't have a lot of lands. It doesn't have swimming pools. It doesn't have gazebos and playgrounds and tennis courts and things that might be outside. So most of the benefits are inside. So you'll see it's at 23%, but you might see another apartment project that is has all of those amenities outside, a garden style apartment, and they would have much more than 23% because they would have any of those additional things, their parking lot and what have you, outside. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, we've all heard of the Jobs Act. of 2017 provides for bonus depreciation on properties that are purchased after September the 27th of 2017. So what basically that means is if you bought a property on October the 1st of 2017, you haven't done cost segregation, you've been using straight line, you decide to do cost segregation in the current year, then you would be able to get bonus depreciation, 100% depreciation on all your 5, 7, and 15-year property in year one for 2020. If you bought the property prior to September the 27th of 2017, then you would get catch-up depreciation. And basically what that means is you would catch up let's say you bought it 5 years ago. Well, you would get you'd get all your 5-year property, 5/7 of your 7-year property, and 5/15 of your 15-year property. So you'd have about 10 years left over of additional depreciation in your 15-year category. By the way, in addition to getting all that, any unneeded depreciation can always be carried forward into future years. So if you zero out your taxes in the current year and you have leftover depreciation, then it would be usable next year. Next slide, please. Okay, let's turn this up to about 139%. Go click, 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 and keep going. Use your little arrow and it should bring it up at least one more so we can see more. Okay, I think everybody can probably see that. There we go. This is going to show you what would happen if you purchased a property in August of 2021. And this is showing a commercial property, a 39-year property, not a apartment property, which is 27.5 years, which would be slightly different. But the illustration is similar. If you use regular straight line depreciation, you don't do cost segregation, you just take it to your accountant, depreciate it for each one, and this shows a $1 million tax basis. Let's say you had $1.25 million, you paid $1.25 million for this property, and $250,000 was land value, and that is unimproved land before any, infrastructure, anything's put in, just raw land. Then you'd have $1 million of tax basis left over. So if you bought that property, you'd get $9,615 of depreciation in 2021 for each $1 million of tax basis tax basis you have. So obviously, if you had a $2 million tax basis, it'd be double that. But $1 million makes it easy. So if you did cost segregation, every different kind of property is different. A medical office building is different than a warehouse, which is different than a hotel, which is different than a restaurant. But the average of all those things is pretty close to 30%. So I'm using a 30% number, and I'm assuming for $1 million, we've got $300,000 worth of short life items, which would mostly fall into the 15 and 5-year categories. So as you can see, if you did cost segregation this year and had it completed prior to filing your tax return on April or whenever it is you file it next year, then you would end up with a amount of depreciation of $306,731 instead of $9,615. So it's almost $300,000 of additional depreciation that you would be able to generate doing.
Real quick question. So this, under this method, accounts for the bonus depreciation, right?
Yes, it does.
All right, got it.
You see, everything is in year one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, it does. Now let's go to the next slide and scroll it up to the top. Okay. Here I'm showing where it was purchased in 2017, but it was purchased prior to bonus depreciation. It was purchased in June, and it has to have been purchased in September the 27th or later. So in this case, what you have is catch-up depreciation. So if you had done straight line from 2017 through the current year, this year you would have $116,000 worth of depreciation. If we use cost segregation method, you're going to get catch-up depreciation. That means you're going to get the depreciation, the extra depreciation that you would have gotten in year 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you'd get it this year. So basically, you would be getting $279,000 worth of depreciation instead of 116, or about $162,000 of additional depreciation. Now, if you had bought that a couple of months earlier, then you would have gotten all of this additional depreciation shown under the 15-year category. Those numbers, if you accumulate all that, that would come in in year 2021. So I don't know how much that is, but I didn't do that. But you would see, if you added all those numbers up for the 15-year category and the additional on the 5-year category, you would add that to your total under the total column. And so let's go ahead and go to an older property. Let's go to the next one, which is a purchase in the year of 2011. So this is a property that's 10 years old. And we've been using the bonus depreciation for the last 10 years. And you can see that if we did it through 2021 and we continue with it, we would get 25,000 this year, and that would accumulate to a total of 270,000 for the last 10 years. If we decide to do cost segregation on that older property this year, we will get all the catch up for the 15, the 7, and the 5-year items. And the total of all those that we're catching up, plus the amount that's still in the 39-year category, will equal $449,000. Or, next column over, $179,000 more than you would by just going forward and continuing with the cost segregate with the straight line method. Questions?
Nope. I think that's good. I think that's good.
Okay.
This answers the question that I had prepared, which is, what's the difference between cost segregation versus straight line? And I think going through this illustration helps to explain that. So thank you.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. One more. Okay. Scroll that up so we can see it a little bit. Okay. When to have your cost segregation done? Ideally, we talked about that earlier when you asked that question, but ideally at the time of purchase, but even during the due diligence period, as long we typically will schedule a site visit within 30 days of completion of any remodeling or additional construction during the year, so that we'll know what your additional cost is. But we want to know what the property looked like when you bought it, and then we'll be able to see it when it's near or at completion. So you definitely want to do it before the property's sold, even if you bought it 10 years ago. Next slide.
So King, real quick, let's say that, I think you provided the example earlier, if a property was purchased in January or February, let's say, early in the year, uh, then, and there's a significant renovation that's planned. In that scenario, as long as the cost seg study is completed prior to the end of that year, it can be applicable towards that tax year, right?
Actually, that's not correct. That's not quite correct. It's
Okay.
almost correct. But as long as the study is completed before you file your tax return. So we could complete the study for you if you were going to file on April 15th. And if you had to have a K1, we'd get it to you by March the 10th or March the 1st, whatever, so you could prepare your K1s. If you were an individual, or you just had a partner and you just had one K1, and you didn't have to worry about sending K1s to a dozen people, then we get it to you on April 15th and you're good, and you can amend your K1. If you extend your filing all the way out to October the 15th, and we get it to you on October the 1st, we're good. So we've got until you're ready to file your tax return to you so that your CPA can use it.
So it's not that the study needs to be completed prior to the end of the
No.
year.
No, in fact, we've just now are completing studies for people that purchased their properties in 2020. And so, and we will have those studies done before the October 15th deadline. But we would not, if you had bought the property in January of this year and you were doing a big renovation, we wouldn't want to run out there in February and do a site visit and take a picture and see what you've done because you hadn't finished. We would be closer. We would want to be at the point where we know what your total expenses for the year are.
Okay.
For construction. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Next slide. Okay, in summary, let's zoom that up one so I can read it. Okay, there we go. It improves your cash flow during the early years of ownership. It reduces taxable income using IRS compliant method. It moves a property owner from a less accurate method of depreciation to a more accurate method of depreciation. So the IRS allows that. And it provides an independent arm's length report from somebody that's not connected to you or your CPA. It requires very little investment in time or money. Cameron, how much time did you spend on studying the cost segregation proposal I did for you?
Not a whole lot.
A few minutes?
Yeah, I read it, looked through it, and I think after I understood a little bit more about it and we had a chance to get back on the phone and explain it, it was helpful. But I didn't spend a whole lot of time myself. It was definitely worth outsourcing that to your company to complete because I wouldn't have known the first thing to do about that. And quite honestly, you want to have a defensible, and maybe you can speak about this, you want to have a defensible study that is not something that you created on your own, but that professional engineers, et cetera, produced on your behalf in the event, in the event that you need to have a nice little discussion with the I, the R, and the S.
Okay, well, let me share with you this. I mean, every once in a while I run into somebody that says, oh, my CPA does that. Mm-hmm. And sadly to say, there are some CPAs that will take it on themselves. Now, I'm not talking about the ones that have a cost seg group in their firm, but I'm talking about the guy that's a sole practitioner out there, and he figures he can kind of throw some numbers together that'll pass muster for the IRS. Actually, unless he knows how to value the cost of a parking lot or all the different systems in it on a property. I mean, does he know the cost of the flooring, the air conditioning, all the roofs, all of the various things? It's probably impossible for a CPA to have that broad a knowledge. The type of people that can do this are really fall into two categories. They're either construction engineers or they're appraisers. They're used to valuing property all the time. So if it's done by an arm's length company like ours, and we're not connected to in any way to any of the people that we do it, we would probably, anybody that is professional would probably come up with fairly similar ideas. There might be some variations because one appraiser or engineer would look at a parking lot and say, "Oh, this thing's, it's 20 years old. It's only got half its life left," or something like that. And the other person might say, "Oh, it's got 60%." So there are some nuances between what one person and another would do, but they would be very, very close. And I would think probably, 5 or 10% between one person and another. And so what you're looking at is a very reasonable expense to generate a pretty significant amount of additional depreciation for you.
Speaking of that, is there a typical cost range that someone might expect, just to give folks an idea of what the costs are for something like this?
Well, I can tell you that if you did it with a major accounting firm, their fees are about twice what ours are. But they also deal with, your Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that. But generally speaking, they're probably hover around the $5,000 range. I've done some major construction, cost segregation projects. I did the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in LA. I think the cost, and this was done 10 years ago, but I think it was 20 grand. And I think I did the Omni, which was a 50-story office building in Manhattan, and I think it was around 20,000. I did a few major office buildings in downtown Houston. I've done and some, like Hyatt hotels and one thing and another. But generally speaking, properties that are kind of in the up to $10 million valuations are probably not going to be much more than $5,000.
Sure.
And if it's in Texas and we don't have to send somebody to Seattle to do it, then and it's a smaller property, it'll be a bit less than that. So I would say in the range of $4,000 to $5,000 would be. If you happen to be in a major metropolitan area in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Austin, we can do it a little bit less because we're there and we don't have to go and send somebody there to do it. But
I think that's very, very helpful. I think one last question I had is if there are any upcoming changes to the tax code that may affect cost segregation studies that you're aware of.
Yes, there is a life on the Jobs Act. Begins in 2022, and I think 2022 you'll only be eligible to get bonus depreciation of 80%, and 23 it's 60%, and so forth down the line until it runs out, unless they change the law. They may change it and keep it at 100%, or may do away with it completely. But as far as right now, there's no legislation in front of Congress to do anything with it other than what's already written into the law.
Okay. Okay. No, that's great. That's that's helpful. I think that's all the questions that I had. Looks like you have one more slide here. Do you want me to advance to it?
Please.
Oh, it's just your, well,
That's my name and number. Well, I tell you what, I had a little bit of a problem with a health problem with my wife this week. Wasn't able to go in and change all the slides the way I'd like to. Don't have my website in there. We have two websites. POconnor.com is our corporate website, just like the end of my email address. www.poconnor.com. That gives, if somebody's interested in one of those other areas, then that would be the website to go to. The Cost Seg website is www.expertcostseg.com. If you go there, you'll also see a page with a banner of all manner of major companies that you know and love, people, big box stores, restaurants, hotel chains, all kinds of people. These are all people that have been clients of ours, and we didn't just put, throw every one of those. So that'll give you kind of an idea. We've done everything from very small mom and pop kind of jobs, down at the $500,000 range, all the way up to buildings that are in the, I think we originally did the Woodlands Mall, and it was, I can't remember, but I think it was something in the range of $50 million, 10 or 15 years ago when it was built. And so,
this is helpful to have your contact information. That was one of the things that I was going to end with is asking how folks can get a hold of you. I certainly believe in what you all have been able to produce for me, and just really the concept in general. I think it's one of these things that is, and I named the title Magic of Cost Segregation because I do have investors in mind who often wonder how it is that they can have a negative number on their K1 that reflects a loss, even though the property itself is not losing money. And it's simply because of this reason is the advantages that cost segregation provides in terms of appreciation. So anyway, with that, any parting thoughts, King?
Hey, it's been fun. Enjoy doing this. I hope that maybe somebody out there gives me a call sometime and I get to meet somebody and we can find out a little bit about what your situation is.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again, King, so much for making yourself available on this Saturday. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your flexibility. Best of luck and blessings to you and your wife.
Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, bye now.